Welcome to Founded in Transcreation, the first ever podcast on transcreation, where we delve into how brands cross borders. And today I'm having a very exciting guest, a very interesting profile from many different points of view when it comes to mingling different industries and different skills, from interpreting to translation to the organization of international events. Welcome to Founded in Transcreation, Csaba Bán.
Thank you, Delfina, for the introduction, and I'd like to greet everyone. Yes, basically, all of what you said is true, although I haven't interpreted for a long time now. So I'm doing translation, transcreation, and conference organizing.
Okay, cool. Thank you for being here, Csaba. I'll just introduce you in a little bit more detail, and then I'd like to discuss a little bit about your experience and about the BP conferences too.
Thank you.
All right, so Csaba did his first paid interpreting and translation assignments back in 1991 as part-time jobs during university, at a time when delivering a job involved sending a floppy disk by taxi to the client's office. After spending a few years as an in-house translator, Csaba started being a full-fledged freelancer on the international market in 2001, and there was no turning back. Active on prose.com in its early years, he started organizing powwows in his native Budapest, then an international conference, while expanding his client base worldwide. 2014 was a major milestone when Csaba organized his first event under his own brand name, BP14 Translation Conference. First in Budapest, then every year in a different country in Europe. When the pandemic started, BP20 was the first event in the translation industry that successfully pivoted to an online platform. While these days, Csaba spends most of his time on organizing translation conferences, he still translates for a few clients. And I forgot to say that Csaba works from English into Hungarian and is currently positioned as a technical translator, right?
Well, yes. Actually, I started out being a financial translator because I studied and business and finance. These were the starting points. But
right.
These days, most of the documents that I actually translate are technical manuals.
Okay, and where are you?
A long shift
right.
from finance and business into technical documents.
Yes, and that's true for many translators, right? I mean, at different points in our career, we may be working more on this specialty field than on another. It depends on so many things. Sometimes our specialty fields find us instead of us going in pursuit of, certain industry or something. And I guess that's in a way your case, right? You've seen opportunity, you have the skills, or else you develop them.
Yes, it's very much, I think it's pretty much the case of supply and demand. I saw that there's a larger demand for technical manuals, so I started doing what I was familiar with, that is IT and computers, and slowly through translating IT, I also started localization, like mobile apps. I did many of those, and also and not only mobile apps, but actually mobile phones, the hardware. I did that I did that before iPhone came in. So in the like about 15 years ago, 15 years ago, I localized many mobile phones,
Right.
and then, but I still retain some clients for whom I love doing investment reports, for example. That's very, very financial, and I love doing that because it's a different type of language. Yes, it involves a large amount of financial vocabulary, but also to some extent, it might sound crazy, but to some extent, it's also some transcreation, because this type of investment reports and quarterly reports have their special type of linguistic characteristics that require a certain type of sentence structures and certain type of writing.
Right. And just a short parenthesis now, and then we'll go back to this question of transcreation, etc., in technical reports and financial reports. Where are you based now?
I live in Budapest, capital of Hungary.
Can you say it again? I loved your pronunciation.
Budapest. That's
yes,
the way we say it.
Yes, but with the S, the fricative there was special. I don't know. Thank you. So you were saying, because actually the main reason, I mean, we're talking transcreation mainly here, right? This is a podcast on transcreation and all things related, like marketing and copywriting. And you were saying that sometimes you have to use some transcreation tactics in order to render these financial reports from English into Hungarian, or what languages are you talking about?
Yes, it's it might sound, it may not be perceived as transcreation per se, because it's not a tagline, it's not marketing copy, it will not be placed on a billboard. But and for many people it might be dry, financial text. But since many of these, in financial reports, there are all kinds of figures. There are percentages going up, something is going down, and actually in English, there's a limited set of phrases that can be used for this kind of movements, like going up, going down, or increase, decrease, whatever. And in Hungarian, similar Hungarian text, there's a wider range of words that we use. Instead of saying decreasing and increasing, I don't translate it every time with the same target language word, but depending on context, or just for variety, for the sake of better writing, I use synonyms, and I use sometimes not using a separate word, but instead I rephrase the sentence, still of course retaining the original meaning, because it's very important to retain everything that's being said, but using like a little bit more colorful phrase instead of just increasing and decreasing.
Yeah, and I see what you mean, and well, from my experience, it's kind of like the same thing from English into Spanish. Sometimes I have to translate marketing reports where lots of figurative language is used in the form of phrasal verbs to, again, indicate whether something went up or down, or it stood, at the same level from year to year. And again, in Spanish, the tactic I use is the same as yours. I try to find different equivalents. Also, if possible, I try to retain these figurative shades of meaning, if possible, and if it doesn't sound strange in Spanish, because it's really interesting to see how from across languages, this figurative language has sort of intermingled with more technical, financial, sometimes economic stuff, and it's used every day. I mean, you read a news article, for instance, and it's there. It's in the daily jargon. So very interesting how you spot these transcreation challenges in a way, in a financial and technical contexts. Do you at present happen to work or be working on any particular transcreation projects?
Well, I just, about 2 days ago, actually, I had a deadline on Tuesday. It was for the Christmas campaign of Lego. So it was, I think about 1,500 words. So it's basically, they introduced some new ranges of products, and well, it's just a Christmas campaign. I think it will be, I'm not sure in what format it will be published, whether it will be printed on the boxes or it will be leaflets in the stores, in the toy stores, or maybe this would be, I don't think it will be a printed advert in a newspaper, because it was too long for that. So I guess it might be a leaflet.
And I've been wanting to ask you, I mean, because you have like 2 or 3 specializations and you do transcreation every now and then, which service do you enjoy providing your clients with the most? Translation, transcreation, and in what specialty field and why?
Well, all of these fields I do for different clients. So for actually transcreation, that amounts to about 10-15% of what I do apart from the conferences. So about 10-15% of all translation activities is transcreation, and that's for one particular client. But that one particular client provides me with transcreation jobs for a wide range of brands. So I just mentioned Lego, but before, or actually on a continuous basis, we have various car brands, or perfumes, or like makeup. Even I do makeup, which is strange for a guy to do that. But I started doing that, I don't know, about 10 years ago. It was something new, and I delved into the language. And so, for example, now when I go to a perfume store, actually I do go to a perfume store now for this reason, just to look at—
to do some market research.
Yes, just to see what adjectives certain brands use to describe their perfumes.
And how? Also, yeah, sorry.
No, I just wanted to say that for example, these adjectives, some brands prefer to use a certain range of or certain set of adjectives, or they might even try to say, or they try to project the image that one particular adjective belongs to their brand. Of course, you cannot appropriate a single adjective from the language, but some brands tend to use one set of adjectives, and even sometimes in the transcreation brief I receive, they say that you should not use this particular adjective because that belongs to our competitor, and we are not really supposed to use that adjective.
Wow, so that's, you just mentioned 2 key points when it comes to transcreation projects. Number 1, the idea of working with a brief. And I mean, a brief is not exactly like a typical translation assignment email, or, it's not the same thing. The brief is very marketing oriented, and it tends to include, if it is done in detail, these things, right? That you, for example, please don't use this word because it's used by our competitors, etc. And how would you define transcreation, supposed to all the other things that you do, in terms of challenge, in terms of how much you enjoy doing it? I know it's only 10-15%, as you said, of the things that you do, but why do you still work on transcreation projects?
For variety.
Yeah.
working on translation only would be too boring, even for translation, I do a wide range of subjects and wide range of clients and all kinds of different kinds of texts, but they require one set of skills.
Right.
Okay, I just open my cat tool and start translating whatever I search for the term, and that's it. But it's not really intellectually challenging. And I
not to you anymore, at least. But to many, I mean, if you asked me to translate a financial report, it would be quite intellectually challenging.
Okay, sorry. Challenging is not the right word. It's not intellectually stimulating.
Okay. Just kidding anyway. I was just kidding.
Okay, so it's not challenge in the sense of difficulty or issue.
Right, because you're used to it and you're specialized in it. It's like
it's the monotony. It's usual. Right. Okay, I can do it. I know I'm good.
Right.
But it's not really stimulating. Sorry, stimulating was the right word.
Excellent.
And when I do transcreation, first of all, I do receive, I would say maybe 5 to 10 transcreation jobs per month. So that's about 2 or 3 small ones.
Yeah.
Every.
But
they are quite a wide range, not only in terms of brands, but also in terms of the type of text that has to be transcreated. Sometimes it's just a tagline of 2 or 3 words, but there's a brief of 20 pages that I have to read. And for those taglines, these will be highly visible taglines that will be put on a billboard. It will be put on the packaging. It might be used as a TV spot, a TV commercial. And for those 2 words, I need to provide 4 or 5 different alternatives. And providing the back translation and explaining why I would pick this one and what connotations the second one might have, any negative connotations, any possible cultural connections, anything like this.
Yeah.
And of course, I have to explain it to a PM that doesn't speak my language.
And to the client who probably doesn't speak the target language. That's why back translation is so important back translation skills are so important in transcreation. Thank you, because you've described the transcreation process for the case of certain source text in detail. And I was wondering if there's perhaps any technical or financial translator listening to us right now. I mean, how would you say that they can attract transcreation projects in case they are like you, that they want to do transcreation, that they are good at it, that they find it stimulating and would like to create some variety in their work routine? What tips would you give these colleagues?
That's difficult. And that's a difficult question, because as I mentioned, in my particular case, I have one client for transcreation, and I've been working for them for almost 20 years. And I actually don't remember how we started working together.
Oh,
it was such a long time ago.
Right.
But probably the fact that I'm still working with them, and I mean, I had at least 20 different PMs, maybe 30. So over the years, they kept me because they know that I consistently provide good quality. But back to your question, how to start out as a transcreator. I mean, there are some general, I can only give some general advice that would probably apply to any type of translation, setting up a website, doing some content marketing, but you probably know it better than me. How to attract clients. You need to set up your profile on Pros, you need to work on your LinkedIn profile and mention what you do, the type of work that you do, try to get some feedback from an existing client, or if you want to really be proactive, maybe try to do a Google search on transcreation agencies or LSPs that do transcreation, and maybe just send a cold email to them.
Yes. Thank you. I was also thinking, you know, of this repositioning strategy that a technical or financial translator would have to undertake to do in case they are already experienced in fields that are not typically associated with transcreation. In your case, I believe, for what you're telling us, is more like a matter of trust that this client, a long-standing client, has been trusting you for so many years. And maybe one day they asked you, oh, and can you do this? And you discovered that you were good at it, and they did too. And now you've been consistently providing transcreation for them as well. But I agree with everything you mentioned, especially the content marketing part, because I think that if a translator is trying to change their specialty field or to add one, and they are already widely known for, I don't know, a specific, a different specialty field, what they should do a lot of, you know, marketing actions to let people know that they are also working in transcreation now, and the social proof, as you said, try to find a client, try to get some feedback, testimonials, something to prove like, yes, you can do transcreation too, and that things will go well. So yeah, thanks. I agree with those points. Now, moving on to the BP conferences, I read on your LinkedIn profile that you've been organizing the BP conferences for about 8 years. Is that right?
That's yes, that's correct.
Okay.
The first conference took place in 2014, but of course I started organizing it a year before, so that's exactly 8 years now.
Yes, almost 10 years, almost a decade. And how did it all begin? How did you have this idea for the BP conferences? Has it always been you yourself, Csaba, or do you get any help from other people?
That's several questions.
Yeah,
and
I'm so curious.
Okay, I will answer all of these questions. So originally, I hadn't thought of organizing a conference. But then, as I mentioned in my bio and what you read to the audience, is that I did my first international conference under the auspices of PROSCON. And I attended some of their early conferences. There was one in Oxford, there was one in Krakow in the early 2000s. And there I met the founder, the guy behind pros.com, Henry Dotterer. And I remember meeting in Krakow in 2005, I think. And he asked me if I wanted to do the next conference in Budapest, because he just happened to like the city. And I told him, well, not next year, but the year after that, because we were expecting a baby the next year. So I said, okay, that's one thing for 1 year. But after that, I'm happy to do. I'm happy and open to organizing a conference. So this is what I did. And so this PROS conference took place in 2007. There were 250 attendees from a large number of countries. And it was very successful and people loved it. And it was well organized, and even for several years after that, people were still referring to the Budapest conference as this was the best organized. But for me, it was a one-off occasion because I went back to translating and I was quite busy. Actually, that was the 5 years after that were the busiest years in my translation career. And at one point, I did a huge job that involved translating about 140,000 words that lasted for 3 full months. And this was already in 2013. So in times of Facebook and, you know, people were interacting with each other online. And when I finished this enormous job, I just posted on Facebook that you know, I just delivered my largest ever translation assignment 15 minutes before the deadline. And this is what I posted, and that's it. And then people started to comment that, so now you have the time to organize a proper conference.
Oh my God.
People who actually attended my 2007 conference.
You will not escape from us.
And then people had been mentioning this, you know, they were playing with this idea that I should do it again, but I never gave it any serious thought. But at that time, in that special moment that I just got rid of this monster of a job that I had worked on for 3 months, I was in such an upbeat mood that I thought, okay, if they want it, I can do it. So while people were commenting on my Facebook post, I called the hotel where the previous one took place, the one in 2007, and I asked them if they have one particular few days available a year later. And they said, yes. I said, okay, can I go to see you in the office tomorrow morning? I said, yes. They were a little bit suspicious because it was a new manager, whatever, but I explained that, you know, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm talking about. And 10 minutes later, I purchased a domain name for $10 or something like that. And while people were like about half an hour after the original post, I just mentioned that, okay, these are the dates. But at that moment, I was doing some brainstorming, and I thought that I would like to do it on my own. So it's not it would not be somebody else's conference, but it would be my conference. I do it the way I would like to do it. Right.
Yes. So the domain name is still the same, right? bpconf.com?
Now it's been bpconf.com for several years now, but originally it was something else because at that time I thought it would be a one-off event, like BP14. So it was BP14 conference, but I couldn't come up with any better name. But then, while I was preparing for this first conference, BP conference, BP because Budapest, and BP is the usual abbreviation of the city.
And it also stands for business practice, right? I read on the website.
Originally, it was only Budapest because I thought it would be taking place in Budapest. But then, while I was organizing it, I thought, if I want to do it right, I would really do it in a way that attracts many people. Right. And I thought for that, a unique selling proposition would be moving it around, like taking it to different cities. But okay, what shall I do with BP? I already announced it as a BP. So I had to do some brainstorming, and I came up with the idea that it should stand for business and practice.
Oh, there.
Okay, so that's because I already had the name, and it was already announced.
Right.
So I didn't change the name.
So you had to work with that name.
Yes, yeah. I had to work with those 2 letters that stand for my native city, and I had to come up with different meanings. So it was, I used various backronyms.
Yes, I read many. The one I remember the most is Business and Practice.
Business and Practice.
Quite a creative challenge.
I'm sorry?
Quite a creative challenge for you.
Yes, it's a transcreation for my own brand, basically.
Yeah, brand naming, yeah. And so you wanted to do it once, and you've been doing it like for almost a decade.
Ever since.
Yeah.
So the original idea was just to do it once, but even while I was starting organizing the first event, I already had the idea of doing it again in a different city. So when the first one actually took place, BP14 took place in Budapest, I already announced the next one. So BP15 took place in Zagreb, then the one after that in Prague. So we stayed. in Central Europe for most of the time.
Yes. And for translators who have never attended the BP conferences, how would you describe them? What makes these kind of events different, apart from changing cities and location? What would you say there is in it for a translator there?
Okay, when I started out, there was there were many translation conferences. So this is like a competitive space, just like anything else. And of course, I had to differentiate my events from all other events. And I noticed that that other events did not put a very important emphasis on networking. And this is so from the outset, like from the very first event, I put a great emphasis on fringe events, networking events, like networking dinners, like walking tours of the city, because most of the people come from abroad. That might be their first time in that city. And I organized walking tours. I organized day trips, you know, just the usual day trips that are the most touristed ones. Those are the easiest. And this is what I repeated every year, even if I went to Croatia or went to Czech Republic or went to Austria and later to Italy. I kept the same pattern. So gala dinner, and like there was a welcome reception when people started to mingle, they started to know each other.
Wow, I love it.
So this is, I think this was the original USP, the unique selling proposition. And I noticed that other events, other competing conferences started to pick up on this. Like, for example, we went to one particular conference in 2016. This is a series of conferences, and the first one was in 2016. And I noticed that there was nothing, there was no gala dinner, there was no dinner at all. So when the sessions closed at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, there was nothing to do. And, and that was it. So what I did in that case, it was somewhere abroad. I had been to that city before, so I was not too much, I was not lost. And on that night, when I was still at the conference, I organized a farewell dinner for the next day. And it was a Saturday, and there were 60 or 70 people in one particular restaurant. And I did that during the night.
Wow.
And later on, the attendees there mentioned that was the best part of the conference.
Right, the part where we get to socialize.
That series of events already, I mean, they already do dinners as well. But the very first time they didn't do anything like that.
And what can a translator learn at the BP conferences?
Yeah, what they can learn, the actual content. So so far I mentioned what we do after the sessions.
Yeah.
But during the actual conference hours, most of the sessions. So first of all, we have sessions, what I call sessions. Those are like regular, maybe 50 minutes sessions. And we also have short talks. And when I mentioned short talks, I was trying to emulate TED Talks. So it's basically like TED for translators. And the first time we did that was in 2017, when I rented a cinema, and it's a beautiful cinema with a large stage, and we had a series of 20-minute talks.
Like the TED Talks, like the TED Talks. I remember we talked about this before, that you wanted.
But it was not exactly the same.
No,
I was not supposed to steal their format, and it's not the same format. So it's 20-minute talk and plus 10 minutes questions and answers. So there's some interactive element in it as well.
Yes, and as a former speaker of 2 different BP conferences, I can say that what I love the most is the wide variety of topics being addressed by different speakers from many different backgrounds and origins, and the networking bits. And I am speaking from virtual experiences, because in my case, unfortunately, I never was there in person when you organized the previous ones. So if the networking sessions are great in a virtual setting, I can't begin to imagine how awesome it must be to share dinner or casual, conversation with a colleague, another speaker, because that's also, I think, a big part of the BP conference essence, right? That the speakers and the attendees are at the same level, right? It's not like, oh, the speakers, we don't mingle with the, no. I mean, we are all colleagues, we're all learning, and I really like that too.
That's right. So I started to mention that, or I didn't start to mention, but I wanted to mention that that these sessions and the talks revolve around the two main fields, that is business and practice. Actually, it's about 60% business and about 40% practice. And business, that's more or less clear. So it's how to get clients, how to get new clients, how to upgrade your existing clients, what pricing strategies you should use or follow, or how to work on your LinkedIn profile, how to work on even there at some point we had a session on Instagram specifically, and all kinds of things like how to keep track of your clients, how to keep track of your jobs. So, and that leads more to the P part, the practice part, which is productivity tools. It can be CAT tools, like the latest features in various CAT tools, or there are all kinds of productivity tools that the translators can use for invoicing, for keeping track of their clients, for shortcuts on the keyboard, or automating repeated tasks, for example, like this.
Yes.
Mostly and decidedly, and it's not academic.
No,
so
it's
word
very
about linguistics. And
practice oriented.
It's very practical,
super
very practice oriented. Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, anything that was left out from your translation course.
Right. And so when's the next BP conference taking place, and where?
The next one, hopefully after 2 years of online events, we can finally meet again in person, and it will take place in Lisbon in May, so the 9th, 10th, and 11th of May, 2022. And well, it's to keep track of the changing times. It will be a hybrid event. So for people who can travel and who can afford to travel, we can meet in Lisbon, but for many other people, it will be possible to join remotely.
Excellent. And just, one final question. Would you like to comment on any upcoming projects apart from the BP conferences that you're working on?
You mean translation projects?
Yes.
Oh.
Or something that's depriving you of your sleep these days?
Depriving me of my sleep. Actually, this past week has been very intense.
Oh.
With so I mentioned the Lego campaign that I had worked on, and there was another transcription job actually just a few days ago.
Okay.
That one was a brand name check for an Apple brand. Like even fruits can be branded, and there was this Apple brand, and I received a task of brand name check if the name has any negative connotations in my language.
I love that kind of task.
If it has any cultural references, if it's easy to pronounce, if it rings well with the target audience, these kind of things. So this is what I did yesterday, I think, or maybe that was also for Tuesday. And right now I'm working on a technical manual for industrial pumps, totally different stuff.
Right. And everything from, English into Hungarian, right?
English into Hungarian. I also do French into Hungarian.
Yes.
But, much less. So it's
okay.
Like I would say 99% of what I do is English to Hungarian. But
All
just
right.
a few days ago, I received an inquiry to do a French to Hungarian job. I haven't opened it yet. I haven't done it because I'm so busy.
Yes, you're jumping in and out of projects, right?
Yes.
All the time.
I told the prospective clients that if it's urgent, try to find somebody else.
Okay, that's a good policy, communication policy, to be able to, to respond quickly so that they can.
Yes. And of course,
find...
if it's an existing client, I will squeeze it in. But for a brand new client, and it's a relatively small amount of it's a relatively small job, I would probably pass it on.
Right. Well, Csaba, it's been a huge pleasure to have you on the podcast. I think we've covered everything. I'm super happy that we could make this recording session happen. I'm super grateful too. Thank you. And the best of luck with your projects and with the BP conference as well.
Thank you, Delfina, for inviting me. And thank you for your contribution to the last two online events. And I hope to see you either online or in person, actually, sometime.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. If you enjoyed this episode of Founded in Transcreation and you have either feedback or even suggestions for upcoming episodes and guests, please let me know through LinkedIn and I'll be happy to connect with you.